Room full of luminaries here. Well, 2 in person and 1 on the guest line. How about that? We have with us Adam Butler back again. How you doing today, man?
Good to be here. Glad to be back.
Good to have you here.
Yeah.
It was a nice vacation.
Yeah. You know, made a little hunting trip.
Okay. We could have guessed that, Chris. Major Chris Reed. How are you, sir?
What's up, David? Good to have you back, Adam.
Yeah, we missed you.
Doesn't see the same without you.
You know.
Well, I'm sure you guys handled it well, though.
Well, the Major was here 2 days in a row last week.
Toting the load, baby.
That is impressive, huh?
Toting the rock.
That's dedication.
Yeah, and you were just slacking off somewhere.
Well, that's true. That part is true.
Okay. As long as you own it.
But, we had, Mr. Reno, I'm sure he left no dead air, I'm sure.
No,
man. He killed whatever air that was living.
And I'm going to be honest, we killed all the air during the breaks, too.
Yeah.
He and I got to talking, and we didn't stop.
Probably got talking about firearms and just off to the races.
Good information.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah. I kind of got sucked into that. We have the Deer Program Coordinator. We'll be talking more with next segment, William McKinley, who is on the guest line with us. How are you, William?
I'm doing well. Glad
to hear it. Now, before we get to any of that, and this is why William is with us, deer season.
It's here, and we say it every year, but it is hard to imagine that, at some point in this year of 2020, many people probably never thought the year would end. And it's progressing that way. And we're here at this point, end of November, and there's some normalcy, coming to those who like to venture into the deer woods with their rifles. And it's it should be a holiday. It's not an official holiday in our state, but
it's a holiday in our minds.
Right. And I the workplaces may reflect an unauthorized holiday toward the end of the week. People.
The one thing about it, though, you remember back first part of October when we were talking about the archery opener and we were talking about how great the weather was going to be. Oh, my gosh, look at this front coming through. It's going to be so cold. Get out your jackets.
Yeah.
Not so for the gun.
Well,
it's looking like
flip-flops
and Bermuda shorts this weekend, huh?
Attitude to just spoil the party.
I hope there's no photographic.
Cool in the morning.
Yeah, it won't be bad.
Hope there's no photographic evidence of you in flip-flops and Bermuda shorts out hunting.
No.
You never know. There could be.
Yeah, well, that's why I said I hope. I
don't dig too
sure
deeply.
Of that. Yeah, that's a very good point, Major.
Do any discovery.
Very good point. It is this weekend, right, is when gun season opens.
That is correct.
Pumpkins in the woods. Blaze orange. The Blaze Orange Army will come out. Well, they've kind of already been out. But, yeah, it kicks
the 21st.
Starts off on that Saturday, and from now until the end of January, there will be a major.
Spouses are going to be getting angry,
or relieved.
Job productivity is going to suffer, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, man.
Well,
it's a great time of year.
The problem with this happening during a pandemic, though, Major, the problem is before in years past, you could just call in sick one day. Now you got to be careful because if you call in sick, you could wind up having to get tests
or they may tell you, "Hey, just don't come back for 2 weeks," and then it's like, what's the old childhood fable? But Brer Rabbit, Brer Rabbit, throw me in the briar patch.
Yeah,
don't throw me in that briar patch.
I am so sick.
Yeah,
I just can't make it. So
there you go.
It may lead into it. That's a good point. Now, of course, with deer season opening, this is our first weekend coming up of mandatory sampling for some of the state, right?
That's right. And we can, William, if you want to jump in on any of this, but yeah, we're doing things a little different this year because of CWD. So if you are in one of the CWD zones, you're going to be, if you take a deer this weekend, you're going to be required to bring it by so that we can collect a little biological data off of it.
That's right, Adam. We have 22 counties, and they're all CWD zone counties, so will be mandatory this weekend, and we're going to have a drop-off location in every county that it's mandatory. And we're going to have some actually physical locations in every positive county. We'll have people at those locations, and we'll be making runs around those other freezers and trying to keep them so that all hunters have to do is drop by that freezer location and leave the head of the deer. Also, hopefully by close of business today, or at least by end of the day tomorrow, we're going to have a list of participating taxidermists on the website. We've contacted every permitted taxidermist, or made an attempt to contact them in the state, and asked them would they assist us in collecting these samples, either by pulling the sample or just saving the heads for us to pick up. So head off that question, what if I kill a trophy buck this weekend? And a lot of people will. Well, you can use one of these taxidermists that are participating and drop by there, and once they cape it out, they'll save the head for us.
Fantastic. Now, just because we have mandatory sampling this weekend doesn't mean you're done after that. The voluntary sampling still going on.
Absolutely. We will have a few temporary drop-off locations this weekend, but for the entire season and already running since October 1st and October 15th archery openers, we have 46 drop-off freezers across the state that hunters can get their deer tested. They show up, they leave the head of that animal, they fill out a card, and we ask them to remove the antlers. We don't save the antlers. And but then they can check their results online. And if there is a positive, one of us, quite often it's me, call them personally to tell them they've harvested a positive animal.
And so just to be clear for the listeners, if you're in the CWD zones, this is not voluntary. It's this weekend only, the 21st and the 22nd, mandatory. You've got to take your deer by either drop the head off in one of the drop freezers, or, you know, as William said, we're going to be doing some of it kind of the old school Game and Fish way, where we'll have check stations with live people there that can take the sample right then. But if you're in one of those counties that's a CWD zone, got to do it. Everybody else, it's voluntary, but we're encouraging you, please take advantage of all these drop-off locations we've got around the state.
Putting you on the spot a little bit, do we have the list of counties that we can
get? I thought, Dave,
it's like 20-something, right?
Yeah, don't want to be, like, slow radio, but it probably is worthwhile to read them all out. So the north zone is Alcorn, Benton, Carroll, DeSoto, Grenada, Lafayette, Lee, LaFleur, Marshall, Panola, Pontotoc, Prentice, Quitman, Sunflower, Tallahatchie, Tate, Tippah, Union, and Yallabusha. And then the South Delta zone is all of Issaquena County and Warren County and the southern part of Sharkey County. Did I get that all right, William?
Yes.
So those areas is mandatory this weekend.
Right. That's right.
And you have until 10 p.m. each day to get it in, I believe is what the word is, right, William?
You have until 10 p.m. on the day of harvest, unless you have contacted us otherwise. And but yes, 10 p.m. on the day of harvest.
Yeah.
Very
so just around lunchtime, make a trip, drop off,
And this is just our effort to try to get more samples. We've set a statewide goal of 10,000 this year, and a big part of managing this disease is to know exactly where it's at. Down to a really, really tight spatial scale. And William has said before, we've been shooting a buckshot pattern till now. Well, we're going to be shooting birdshot now. We're going to be, really fine scale and be able to look at where the disease is and where it isn't.
Here is the $1 million question, and William, I'm going to throw this to you from the C Spire text line. Can you eat CWD positive venison?
So the Center for Disease Control, the North American Center for Disease Control, recommends you do not eat a positive animal. So, and they recommend that if you are hunting in an area where CWD has been found, that you get that animal tested. And so you can eat it. It has never shown a clear jump to humans, but it is not recommended, very much not recommended. So
that makes sense. And after the break, we'll get into more about the deer hunting and CWD, because CWD is a big part of this deer hunting season, I'm afraid, and there's not much we can do except try to cope with it as best we can. But real quick, I want to get it in. You were talking before we went on the air. You guys have a podcast now.
We do. We started a podcast, and I'm going to give Chip and Josh Carver credit for that. I guess that's the world we live in now, that a lot of people
like podcasts.
Listen to that and get their info from that.
Good.
So go check it out. It's available on all those different places you get podcasts. Everybody does it a little differently, I know, but it's the Wild Mississippi Podcast. I'm going to try to talk them into turning it to the Mississippi Outdoors. I just feel like we branded that thing.
Yeah,
but
you've got brand unity.
The inaugural episode is up, and I had a little drive time the other day and listened to it, and it's dadgum good. I'm proud of those guys. They did a great job with that.
Fantastic. So you can find that anywhere.
That you can. They're actually talking about deer hunting on public land, so it's timely.
Is this you jockeying for a guest invitation during turkey season?
It's probably me jockeying to let somebody else take the radio hosting duties.
Ah, yeah, no.
Chip and Josh are doing so good with that.
We will continue. William's going to help us look at this upcoming deer season when we return on Mississippi Outdoors Radio. Welcome back, Mississippi Outdoors Radio. And before we get to William talking about deer season, I do have one thing I want to deal with, Major, on the C Spire text line. This one's going to be for you, and I feel like I know the answer already, but they said it's Bobby from Greenwood. Said there's a public hunting place just north of Greenwood that requires a 606 NW permit that is small game only. If it's small game only, in other words, squirrels and rabbits, is hunting orange still required during deer rifle season when hunting squirrels?
Not being exactly knowledgeable about what track he's talking about. There's a lot of FSA tracks within the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that people can put into the refuge system, and you can hunt small game only on those. That being said, if you're squirrel hunting or small game hunting, rabbit hunting, or whatever, he said squirrel, right?
Yeah.
If you're squirrel hunting, you're not required to wear hunter's orange. Only if you're deer hunting in the state are you required to wear hunter's orange, or hog hunting during an open gun season on deer. So squirrels, no, you don't have to wear it. And unless there's something specific to that little bitty property that he's speaking of, which I'm unaware of any off the top of my head, because they generally just mirror or adopt our regulations. So no, he does not have to squirrel hunt. No. And the squirrels would, he knows very well that the squirrels would be barking at him when he got out of the truck wearing orange.
Probably so. Now, having said that, of course, it makes it easier to not be mistaken by a deer hunter who's wandered up into the wrong place, so your mileage may vary. It's a personal choice, but it's not required.
No, it's not. If you're not deer hunting or hog hunting, you don't have to wear hunter's orange.
Okay. Very good. Just wanted to get that answer in before we got back to
Thank you for keeping me sharp, David.
I'm keeping you right on point. You never know when I'm going to spring another one on.
When I'm going to pop out in the woods and have to run into some of these listeners that are saying, "Well, you didn't know the answer the other day." While I'm checking them, so
that's not going to help your case.
Grammar or grammatical corrections, whatever the case may be, we got corrected last week for some of possible grammar mistakes. But
they pop off like that. You're going to count their fish twice.
Yeah, we won't go there.
Too late. I think you already implied what we needed to know. William is on the guest line. William McKinley, the Deer Program Coordinator. Gun season opens up this Saturday. What are we looking like for this gun season and this deer season, William? Is it going to be a good one?
Well, yes, we're anticipating a good season. We've seen numbers. People are seeing a lot of deer, even though the weather's been warm. We've had a few cool snaps since the first archery season opened at the beginning of October, but overall, I was still picking butter beans out of the garden on Saturday, so that'll tell you a little of how warm it's been there. But I'm hearing a lot of reports of people harvesting deer, seeing a lot of deer, and population appears to be up somewhat, and going up even further with the talk of one of the best fawn crops we've ever seen. So I'm anticipating a very good season.
Well, and I do know, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, guys, we have a couple of trees out front of the building here, and it has the parking lot is carpeted with acorns. It seems like we've got more acorns than I've seen in a long time.
I got a pin oak off of my back porch, and you talk about wake you up when you go outside without any shoes on. Oh, man.
From a deer hunting perspective, guys, plentiful. That's both a blessing and a curse.
That's right.
It means the deer are going to be incredibly healthy.
Yeah.
The deer that I have personally seen that people have been dressing have been already really fat.
Mm-hmm.
That's That's that acorn crop. But that acorn crop will also suppress movement because there's two things kind of make deer move. One of them's the rut, and that's only a few week period. The other's their stomach. Mm-hmm. And right now, those acorns, after the wind we had from those tropical bursts and tropical storms, the ground is littered with acorns. I said a few weeks ago it looked like a moderate acorn crop. I retract that. This is the areas I've looked at. It is an excellent acorn crop. So food plot use may not be that great, especially early. Going to encourage hunters to go in the woods, get in the woods on acorn trees dropping that are next to cover, because deer, they may get up later. It may take them longer before they move out of the cover of the woods to enter a field, and you need to be there to intercept them.
And that's the trick. Like you said, it's a blessing and a curse. You're going to get a good deer when you find it, but you got to go hunting for them.
And they make it a little more trouble seeing them. I've already been talking to some of the clubs I work with, saying, hey, anticipate reduced sightings after all these acorns have hit the ground. So, but I say again, everything that we're looking at data-wise indicates that the herd has been growing over the past few years. Harvest has been down, which that's the one thing. It doesn't point toward an increase in population, but every other factor, from looking at how many deer, we monitor deer vehicle collisions. We monitor that on an annual basis. That's been increasing. Observations are going up. The percent of older does in the harvest from our DMAP clubs is going up. All the biological factors out there suggest that this herd across our state, now granted there'll be certain locations where it's not, but as a whole, we are seeing an increasing deer herd across this state. We need hunters to get out there and get involved. We're getting more complaints of deer damage. I've received more reports this year from deer damage from inside cities than I probably have in my career put together. So, and that's a whole other issue right there. But bottom line, we need hunters to get in the woods and harvest some deer.
Well, and that brings me to my next question. You know, the past few years, we've been kind of on a downward trend as far as the harvest numbers went. Do you think we're going to rebound from that this year?
So last year, we began to rebound. It was a few percentage points up last year. Now, you know, the 17-18 season were record low harvests for us since we began keeping records. The earliest records I could find of actual total deer harvest from a survey method was the early 70s. And the 17-18 season were they were record lows. But we rebounded last year. And I'm anticipating that rebound to make even a bigger jump if we can get some decent weather. So Adam pointed out, and the Major did too earlier, this coming weekend may be kind of warm. It's looking like it will be rather hot, but there's cool weather right behind it.
What are you doing, William, to guarantee that we'll get some good colder weather in here for the hunting season?
I recommend praying.
Okay.
But beyond that, we need cool weather.
Now, let me ask you this. We're talking about all these numbers going all the way back to the 70s, and voluntary reporting of your harvest, whether it's a CWD zone or not, has long been a focus of the department. Why are those numbers important? Why is it such a big deal that we get those numbers from as many hunters as possible?
Well, if you look at our job from my job, trying to manage a deer herd on a statewide basis, imagine you were making widgets in a factory and you had 82 factories, one in each county. And all you knew was that your total number of widgets being sold was going down. Would you impact every store you had, every production? You would look at where the actual declines are occurring and address it right there. We can't do that. We don't have that tool in our toolbox. So, yes, we have what appears to be an increasing deer herd, but we do have pockets within the state where that deer herd has apparently been decreasing at a higher rate than other areas, and we don't know if that increase has occurred there or not. What is it attributed to? We got some ideas with wild pigs being one of the concerns there, and that it appears numbers deer herds appear to decline where we see it, the highest pig numbers. Kind of makes sense, but bottom line, we can't track that. And then throw CWD into the mix and look at, in other states, they're able to monitor on a county-wide basis if deer harvest is declining in CWD zones. We can't do that either. So this is a tool we've asked for a long time, and we need hunters to support to their legislature that we need this tool to help manage this herd for the future. We got new challenges we've never seen, such as in the form of CWD, as in a epidemic of wild pigs in the state. You know, hunters harvested about 1.4 hogs for every deer last year. That number was below deer harvest just a few years ago. So the pig numbers are exploding in this state. And bottom line, they're going to continue to have an impact on the deer herd.
If you harvest something, say something. We'll just go ahead and start that as an expression at this point.
Hey, Dave.
It's catchy. Jot that down.
Caught my eye there.
Hand that to Chip. We will continue with Mississippi Outdoors Radio next. Welcome back to Mississippi Outdoors Radio, and it is time for the Gateway Getaway. And this week, our Gateway Getaway is Trace State Park in Belden, Mississippi. Trace State Park was formerly known as the Old Natchez Trace Park when it opened in 1973 under the authority of the Tombigbee River Valley Management District. They officially entered the state park system back in 1985, July 1st to be exact. The park consists of 2,545 acres, including a 565-acre lake. They reopened in August of 2020, just a couple of months ago, after some repairs to the dam were completed that were desperately needed. Trace State Park offers 76 RV sites, 8 cabins, a picnic area, playground, fishing, disc golf, water skiing, 35 miles of trails, including equestrian, which means you can bring your horse, right, Adam?
That's it.
You always like this.
Yes.
Every time we get to the horse part, you
it's
really focus on that.
It's unique. It's a unique feature that many people don't know about.
Most people bring, a sandwich, and some people may bring a golf cart or a tent.
Bird watching.
Not everybody can just bring their own horse.
Yeah. Step one, I got to get a horse. Step two, I'll bring it to some of the state parks where it's allowed. You can also mountain bike, nature hiking, and ATV trails are available as well. If you'd like to find out more about this park, you can go to MDWFP.com, or you can call the park itself at 662-489-2958. And, of course, the annual park permit's still available for $50, gives you access to all of the state parks in Mississippi for a solid year. This week's Gateway Getaway in Belden, Mississippi, Trace State Park. Adam Butler, Major Chris Reed, both in studio on the guest line with us. William McKinley, the Deer Program Coordinator. And, William, let's get back to it. You mentioned something about some of the harvest reports you've seen already in terms of archery season, and some big deer have been taken already?
They sure have. Already seen some reports, some really, really nice bucks taken in Franklin County, Holmes County, Yazoo, Attala, a few of the counties in the North Delta, even some over in the east central part of the state. So seen a lot of reports of first deer. I actually saw a report of my nephew last night, took his first archery buck yesterday afternoon. So, yes, some really, like I said, deer have been moving, and people are seeing a lot of deer when the weather is cooperating.
Now, what's antler development looking like this year?
Better than average. So we're looking at deer that were born. When we look at antler development, we actually got to look back to the year they were born and the year that they were 1-year-olds. And we're coming off some years that were better growing conditions for some of those deer on the years they were born. So deer that are 3 and 4 are looking pretty good. And so if a deer's born in a drought year and the doe nursing that buck was unhealthy due to drought, you're going to see him suffer. In a nutshell, he's stunted, just like kind of too many bluegill in a farm pond. So, but we're coming off a good year, and we had really great conditions. It rained, ample rain throughout the summer. It was not terribly oppressive heat during the summer this past year. So overall antler growth conditions have been just short of ideal.
Very good. Now, you mentioned the Delta and the North Delta. We've had some problems with the population up there in previous years. Is that coming back? Is that rebounding?
It is rebounding, but I will remind folks that we had another flood this past winter and spring. So the water came out. It was not as high as it was in 2019, and certainly not for the duration, but it was a very significant flood event again. But the water receded before fawning time this year, which was a very good thing. We've heard reports of a lot of fawns, seen pictures of antler development, and that's a funny thing about deer. They in antlers, if they're suppressed one year due to environmental conditions, and the deer was overall healthy, meaning he had born a good year, healthy growing up, and then suddenly one year makes his antlers go down because, well, the flood in this case, you get better conditions the next year, he rebounds and almost like he compensates for it. So you'll actually see bigger antlers, bigger than average on the year of the rebound. They've shown that in some pen data at MSU and Texas and others, and it appears through the trail cam photos I'm seeing that we're getting some of that rebound this year. So I expect some very good antlers in that part of the world.
Now, are we back to pre-flooding numbers up in the Delta, or are we not even close?
No. No, we don't have a way of monitoring total numbers. We're actually starting a project with MSU beginning this upcoming beginning in next month, as a matter of fact, where we're going to be generating better ways to estimate density in the CWD zone and the flood zone. So, but we can say for the most part, certainty, the numbers have not rebounded to what they were pre-flooding era from a few years back. But there's still plenty of deer there. I want to remark that there's still plenty of deer in that area to keep the population going.
Now,
and to hunt.
Unfortunately, there's a downside to the population rebounding in the Delta, and that's CWD, because that's where our major problems are with the disease. And the more deer you have, the more there are available to catch this. And that's why the plans are so important for the sampling and for the goals that you have in place. Talk about those for a moment.
Yes. So the worst place for CWD in Mississippi is North Mississippi, but we have found it in Issaquah County in the South Delta. We have found 2 positives there, one in February 2018, one in November of 2018. Then sampling the following year was hampered by the flooding tremendously. So we say, well, you didn't find a positive deer there last year. Well, we didn't sample very many either because flooding had reduced harvest so much. So we have a goal this year of 10,000, roughly, and we have county goals scattered across the state. This mandatory sampling that we have coming up this weekend will be followed January 2nd and 3rd by some mandatory sampling in southwest Mississippi, January 16th, 17th, with 15 counties in southeast Mississippi. That's targeting some areas that we've been traditionally low on samples. Those counties were selected because they've been well below the goals that we've been setting. So we need hunters' help in this. We need hunters' help to find this disease, because if we don't know where it is, we can't manage it.
And as we move forward into gun season, we've already had archery season going for a while. Have we gotten a decent number of samples so far, and have we seen any positive results out of those?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and I'm quite pleased with where we're sitting as of today. I checked just an hour ago, and we're at 506 samples already. About 80% of which we have the results in, maybe a little higher than 80%. It was a little over 400 we had the results in for. The rest I'm actually expecting results on today or tomorrow. And then all the ones from this weekend will be coming in. But we found 4 positives so far, and our sampling period runs from July 1st to June 30th. So one of these was back in late July. One was in August. Those were both sick deer from Benton County that were reported by landowners. that turned out to be positive. And since then, we have had 2 hunter-harvested deer that have been CWD positive.
Do you know off the top of your head where those 2 were from?
Yes, all 4 positives this year have been in Benton County. And
okay.
I'd like to point out that Benton County is the highest prevalence we have. I calculated the prevalence, which is just the number of animals positive within the samples that we get. And the top 10 miles of Benton County, which is basically from Ashland north, we calculated this past week, we're looking at 29% of the 2-year-old and older bucks up there are positive. That was from last year's sample numbers. That's a very high percent. You look at some studies from out west, 6 studies found that CWD negatively impacts deer population, makes the deer herd begin to decrease at levels before it reaches 30% prevalence, and we're at 29%. Now, will that hold true in our more highly productive deer herds of the east, and especially in that part of Mississippi? We don't really know, but I'm not anxious to find out. We need to try to reduce this prevalence as opposed to watch it grow.
And that comes back to, even when it's not a mandatory sample weekend, voluntary sample. Take those samples in. You guys have set this stuff up all over the state. It's convenient for everybody to do this, William.
Yes.
So,
yes, we're doing all we can with the people we have, and I commend all the people on our staff that are working so hard and preparing for this weekend. They've already worked so hard in getting all these stations set up. We check every one of these stations on a normal week, not a mandatory weekend week. On a normal week, the freezers get emptied every Monday, and then we're cutting the samples out on Tuesday. They go to Jackson and make it to the lab by Thursday, and we try to the lab can turn results back around within a week or so after that. So from a hunter's perspective, we often get asked, how long does it take to get my results?
Well, William, we're up against a break. Hold on. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Mississippi Outdoors Radio. I have a question or two on the C Spire text line. William, they're calling you out by name now, my friend. Philip in Starkville says, ask William, being the positives are in North Benton County, isn't that likely because of the higher numbers in the Hardeman County, Tennessee area?
Absolutely. It appears that outbreak is centered on the Fayette-Hardeman County line in Tennessee, about 7 miles north of the state line. Looks like it's the epicenter. But it's radiating out, and as we found it all the way down to Issaquena County, I can't tell you if they're connected. Are the 2 we found in Issaquena connected to that? Well, I just don't know. But
here's a good question, actually. Since CWD is a prion disease, and we've talked about that before, doesn't a positive mean that you have to burn all your equipment in the cooler due to contamination? What is the process to avoid cross-contamination amongst the samples?
Well, the way the sample is actually tested, by cutting into the center of the lymph node and taking the pieces, and we have to worry very little about cross-contamination with the actual samples. Just the method of testing helps prevent that. And anytime we get a positive with that, they then revisit the tissue, cut it 2 more times, run it 2 more times before it is deemed a suspect positive. Then it's sent for another type test that's called immunohistochemistry before we call it a confirmed positive. So it actually has to come back 4 times before it's a confirmed positive.
And I wonder if that listener there was talking about if he, as an individual hunter, takes a deer and puts it in the cooler or whatever, and then, that deer ends up being positive, how should he treat his equipment?
Oh, good point, Adam. That may have been what that caller was meaning. Decontaminate your equipment with a solution of 50/50 chlorine bleach for at least an hour. And so soaking knives, now that can be kind of corrosive, but if you have a positive, that's what the recommendation is, to denature those prions.
Okay. Okay, good information there. Good stuff to know. Speaking of that, and these are good guidelines. Have there been any changes to the regulations because of CWD?
There have been quite a bit, but I will say there's been no changes since last season, other than the mandatory sample weekend. So, but yes, there are feeding bans implemented, and it takes a very small piece of tissue. They're finding out through a recent study, the size of a very fine grain of sand of infectious material infected deer. So hence the feeding bans in the areas where we're finding it, and outside of where we're finding it to prevent it spread. Carcass movement bans to prevent an infected carcass accidentally coming into a non-infected county. We've added some more liberalized bag limits by offering some tags around the positives, because it sounds very simple, but the best way to slow the spread of a disease, if a deer has it, is to remove that deer. Where's the best place to find positive deer is where you've already found positive deer. So we recommend once we find it, we can issue tags around that area within 3 miles to remove extra deer.
Now, let me ask you this just very quickly before we run out of time here, William. Gun season opens this weekend. What are your professional recommendations for folks that are going to be hitting the woods first thing Saturday morning that are looking to take a good deer? What's your advice?
Get out there, number one. Get up. The weather's not going to be great, but I assure you won't get one by staying at home. So get out. Find somebody who's never been hunting and take them hunting with you. You might want to prep for that prior to, as opposed to calling them early that morning. But there's ample opportunity to get a deer. Our numbers appear to be growing. We need more deer harvested. Venison is a wonderful source of protein. It's the protein, it's the meat on my table. We're eating several deer a year at my house. We offer ways to get them tested, and there is no better way to socially distance in a COVID-type era than to get out and go deer hunting.
That's great advice, I think, William. William's got this stuff dialed in, Adam.
He closed it out with some positivity there.
He did. I like that. We needed to. One more piece of positivity. Mississippi Outdoors TV, Adam.
This week going to be doing an alligator hunt in Adams County, and then some crappie action on Grenada Lake. So tune in for Mississippi Outdoors TV Thursday nights at 7:30 on MPB, and then again Saturday at 5:30. And I'm going to plug that podcast one more time, the Wild Mississippi podcast. Go check that out if you're curious. If you need a place to deer hunt this year, you lost a lease, don't have a place to go, whatever fell through, and you're looking at maybe trying deer hunting on public land. This is the episode for you. We've got a great guest on there who's a public land deer expert, and he goes through all the basics.
The Chip Show, available on podcasters
and you can hear
near you.
The infamous Chip Ward hosting. And he does a good job.
And you said he did a very good job. Mississippi Outdoors TV, an alligator hunt, and then white perch fishing.
I'm with you.
I've got to keep working on this.
I'm with you. Hey, I'm with you.
We're not there yet, though. That's it for Mississippi Outdoors Radio. Have a wonderful day. I'll meet you back here tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. on Super Talk Mississippi. See you then.